I'm Alan Colmes. Dr. Rand Paul, the junior senator from Kentucky, is with us. Dr. Paul, graduate of Duke University School of Medicine, was a practicing ophthalmologist in Bowling Green for 17 years. By the way, I found it fascinating, Dr. Paul, that you do pro bono eye surgery to Kentuckians in need of care even to this day, and that you had founded an eye clinic that provides eye exams and surgery to needy families and individuals.
Yeah, just 2 weeks ago did some surgery, and I think in about 2 more weeks we have 5 cataract surgeries that I'll do.
I think a lot of people know that about you. I think that's kind of neat. Also, how you feeling? Did you get some sleep?
I did. My voice is coming back. My feet still hurt, though, from standing on them for so long.
I love when you said that maybe you should have had a catheter there. Maybe it would have given you more time on the stage,
well,
right?
No, what I really said, Alan, was I'm a doctor, and I know how those get put in, and I decided I didn't want one of those.
Yeah. Listen, congratulations. I know that people on both sides of the aisle, and you and I have talked a few times about this, and I think what you did was the right thing. I said it as a liberal Democrat. And congratulations for getting the Attorney General to finally say what needed to be said.
Well, I think it was an important question, and the reason we kept asking was that when we first asked the CIA director, can you kill an American on American soil, his response was, we want to optimize secrecy and we want to optimize transparency. And I kid you not, that was his entire response. And so I tell people, look, I'm not a lawyer, but I've seen it at lawyer shows on television to know that that's a non-responsive answer. And that answer went on for a month and a half until then they finally said, well, yeah, under extraordinary circumstances, but that also wasn't our question because we were more concerned that the fact that a lot of the drone strikes overseas are not extraordinary circumstances. They're circumstances where no combat is involved. And I was concerned, boy, if that's the standard, I sure wouldn't want the standard we're using overseas to be used here in America.
So he did say that the president does not have the authority to kill an American not engaged in combat, but if that person were engaged in combat, that would be a different story, correct?
Yeah, and the thing is that I think most of us agree to that. So, for example, if you're robbing a liquor store and you've got a gun and you come out and you're a danger, the police can shoot you without giving you Miranda rights or without due process or a trial. Same way if you're flying a plane into the Twin Towers, if you're committing an act of aggression and you're in the process of killing people, you can be deterred through lethal force. Most of the time in the United States, so it would be by police and FBI. Rare occasions, if it involved a plane or something, the military would be involved, but it would never involve some of the circumstances that seem to be occurring overseas where we kill people in their house, in their bedroom, in a restaurant, or walking along the side of the road or in cars, not engaged in combat. And that's another story and really needs to be debated as well. But the thing is that's not a standard that we could accept inside our country.
Why do you think it took so long to get clarification on that and they didn't come out and say what should have been said initially?
I think presidents, Republican and Democrat, are infected with a disease, and it's this disease of power. And it's not really in a bad way a disease. It's a disease in the sense that, well, it is a bad thing, but they think that I'm a good person, and so this power gravitating to me is not a bad thing. They don't see power in the abstract, and I see power in the abstract as being a bad thing, to let too much power gravitate to one person. And I also see it the way Madison saw it when he, in the Federalist Papers, said that we wouldn't need these laws if men were all angels. I see laws as being necessary for when we don't elect angels.
I had the problem when Bush did certain things I didn't like, and I have the same problem when this president does things I don't like, because the next time when the next president, who I may not like and I may not trust as much, gets the same power, I'm not going to like it as much.
Well, no, what I said in my speech, I said a lot of things, but one of the things I said is that I had a great deal of respect for the candidate Barack Obama, and while I didn't vote for him and didn't support him, one of the things I did respect and admire was that he stood up for civil liberties. He said that America should not be represented by torture. That's not something that we should do as a civilized nation, that we should get warrants before we tap people's phones. And so it seems inconceivable that same candidate would now want to assert the right to use drones in this fashion. So it was inconsistent. And he may have always had this position, but I think that presidents don't like to divulge or admit that they don't have a certain power. So we really, by forcing the issue, did get him to admit that he doesn't have that authority. So I think it was a good step forward for those who think the presidential power should be limited no matter who's in office.
We are talking with Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. What was the thought process that went into your deciding to do this filibuster?
Well, I walked in and asked for recognition. We had kind of thought that we might do it if the time was available. What usually happens is the floor is guarded by the majority party, and not in a physical way. They guard it by putting legislation on the floor continuously. So, for example, for the last 6 months, or maybe even the last 2 years, I don't know the floor ever being open. Just happened to be open that morning, and there were no limitations on debate. I got recognized, and I think they thought I'd speak for a while, and that's kind of what I thought at first. I'll speak for an hour or two, and then I kind of got going. I got on a roll.
So while it was happening that you decided to open-end it at that? It wasn't planned in advance?
It's somewhat planned in advance in the fact that we had talked about debating for a lengthy time on drones, and we had gotten a couple of folders together, and really that morning before I came in, I'd spent about 2 hours going over my information at home before I came in to be prepared, but we didn't know if the floor would be open or whether we'd be allowed to actually be recognized for as long as we wanted to. And so it was in the back of my mind, but it wasn't like, oh, hey, call everybody, we're going to filibuster. We didn't know until that moment we walked in, one, and then we didn't also know once I got started how long it could last. You don't know how long you can last without having to, run to the restroom.
Would you have gone further if you needed to? Could you have gone more than 13 hours?
I think I could have gone maybe even another hour or two, but there needed to be a point of resolution to, it wasn't there just to break a record. I don't think I could have made it 24 hours, which would have broken Strom Thurmond's record. But see, I think he was cheating a bit. So he was apparently going into the cloakroom and relieving himself, and I didn't think that would look good on national TV. They didn't have TVs in his day, so he didn't have to worry about it.
How do you come up with that much stuff to say without repeating yourself?
Well, I probably, if you watch all 13 hours, there probably was some repetitive stuff. What I tried to do after a while when I got tired, and I spoke my piece for several hours with a lot of new information, then I would look at the gallery, and you know how the gallery turns over about every 30 or 40 minutes?
Yeah.
I kind of pretended like they were a new audience.
I see.
So I'd hit them with some of my best stuff. So I was refining my lines and hitting them again with my best stuff.
You didn't read the phone book or anything like that at any point?
No, but I pretty much talked about the issue the whole time, and I think that was different than some filibusters in the sense that I think when Harry Reid did 9 hours, he read from a book that he had written. I think Strom Thurmond read the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and various other things, which is okay, but I liked really trying to stay on subject because I think there's an incredibly important issue in that the people who have been fighting for us and have volunteered to fight for our country, they believe they're fighting when they go overseas for the Bill of Rights, and I think it's wrong for them to come home and find out, well, guess what? Because we're afraid of terrorists, we're suspending the Bill of Rights in our country. And literally some of the Republicans on my side think that the war has no geographic limits. So does Brennan, and so does the president's official position. But when they say it has no limits, they believe that the laws of war should apply to the United States. And that really just bothers me because the law of war basically means you don't get a lawyer, you don't get due process, you don't get a trial by jury. And I can understand that. If you're in a battlefield and you're shooting at Americans, we don't ask you, do you want an attorney? We kill you in a battlefield. But if we're home and you're communicating with someone by email and maybe you have a relative that lives in the Middle East, I think that someone has to accuse you of something. They can't just say, oh, that person in the Middle East is a terrorist, therefore you're associated with terrorists, and he has an Al-Qaeda card. And I tried to point out that nobody has an Al-Qaeda card. Everybody now is called Al-Qaeda in the whole world. Anybody committing any kind of violence against their government is considered to be Al-Qaeda. All the information's secret, so you or I cannot contest whether some guy overseas is. We can't prove yay or nay whether they're a terrorist. But given that information, if you somehow communicated with them because they were related to you, is that enough to kill you with a drone or indefinitely detain you? And see, President Obama signed the indefinite detention with the same sort of logic about a year ago. He says, I don't intend to detain anyone, and that just frankly isn't good enough.
I agree with you about that. We have to take a little break here. Would you be able to hang on? I'd like to talk a little bit more about the filibuster, the outcome of it, and also the Republican Party, because you've said some very interesting things about what you think the party needs to do in terms of expanding.
Unfortunately, I've got to run, but let's do it again sometime soon.
Appreciate it, Senator. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. There is a lot he has said that I wanted to get to, and hopefully I'll have a chance to talk to him again soon. We'll come back and take your calls at 877-4-ALLEN.